behavior without that challenging the tenets of liberalism. Because when it comes to a liberal society, when you have another society that's not liberal, a liberal society can do preemptive war, and it can say, we are going to fight these people. For example, one of the greatest injustices of the 21st century was the Iraq War. And the Goebbels of the Iraq War, from the liberal end, was Christopher Hitchens. Now, he was a liberal, but he believed that the warfare that they were engaged in was just. And he believed that new atheism that he was part of, they were the only people fighting for secularism alongside the American army in Afghanistan and Iraq. So he considered his cause a cause that you could use military warfare to oppress a people. He you could do that.
I've seen what you've done there. You've taken atheism and you put it in with liberalism.
Yeah, they're linked.
All right.
Don't you think they're linked?
But I think you can be religious and be liberal.
Potentially. Depends what religion. But for example, I'm a Muslim. I don't believe it's possible to be a Muslim and a liberal. I think it's impossible. It's like being, a vegan who eats a burger now and again. You're not really a vegan, right? You're eating meat now and again. You're not really a vegan.
But don't take this offense. If I say you're a Muslim, but you don't stick 100% to everything in the Quran, then you're being liberal.
To some extent, you could just say that's a sinful Muslim. There's a difference between Preston, right? There's a difference between Preston, between a liberal Muslim and a sinful Muslim. So for example, I may be a person who drinks, who womanizes, who does all sorts of madness, but that doesn't mean I'm a liberal. It could just mean I'm just not following the tenets of Islam. A liberal would be someone who says, no, 1400 years ago alcohol was banned, but today we can revise the Quran. Right? That would be a liberal Muslim. And a liberal Muslim is basically an oxymoron. Islam is not a religion in which we're proud of being rigid. We're proud of being a religion that doesn't change according to the whims and desires and opinions of the, whatever's fashionable today. We believe we have a way, a path which doesn't need any form of reformation.
I get it now. So you believe then liberalism would be challenging the laws within Islam to push forward some kind of reformation which would destroy Islam.
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example, right? Have you heard the term, Preston, Islam needs to be liberalized?
No, I've heard reformed, but not liberalized.
Right, fine, reformed. But when you say Islam needs to be reformed, it means reformed according to something else.
Yes,
and what is that something else? It's liberalism. Right? So I believe, if anything, we should simply say, well, if you want Islam to be liberalized, prove to us liberalism is true. Prove to us the foundations of liberalism. And show us whose history is worse, Islam or liberalism. Now, when a Muslim or an Islamic country does something that may be racist or colonial or oppressive, we can go back to the foundations of Islam and say, Preston, that is wrong because we have this text to prove you can't do that.
Right.
However, when it comes to liberalism, their philosophy, their foundation, it allows for that. You can't say, for example, what the French did in Algeria, or what Christopher Hitchens was pushing for in Iraq. You can't say, according to liberal tenets, that these things are wrong. You could simply say, we don't like them, we think they're wrong, but you can't use liberalism to challenge racism or colonialism or anything like that. You simply have to say, well, liberalism allows it.
And liberalism would allow it, because liberalism it's fluid. It's not like say the Quran, where the laws come from Allah and they're rigid. As you use that word rigid, you can't go around them.
Yeah.
But you still have to say there are benefits to living in a society that is liberal. We're here right now because of a liberal society.
I don't deny that, and I don't deny a communist society has benefits, a socialist society also has benefits, a totalitarian society may also have benefits, but the question is, it's not about the benefit, it's about what's true. So for example, anybody that lives according to a liberal worldview, they will have some things that are very positive, some things that we can learn from. However, the real question is what's true. So if someone says liberalism, Marxism, socialism, communism, what's the best way? My question is going to be, bring me the evidence that your worldview is true. Liberalism today is based upon an atheistic worldview. In the past it wasn't, but today it is. Liberalism is linked to atheism. So what I want to know is, fine, I'll be a liberal, no problem. Give me evidence atheism is true.
Well, you see, it wouldn't work because, like I mentioned, I like what you've done. You've taken liberalism and you've associated with atheism.
I believe it is.
Yeah. So obviously, as a Muslim, there's no way you're going to touch liberalism if it's with atheism. Yeah. So the way you've done it, it makes absolute sense that you would look at it as, and I'm not saying it's perfect. I don't believe there's any perfect system. Some might say Islam is if it's implemented correctly in a Sharia, I don't know. Christians might say their worldview if it's implemented in a Christian world, in a Christian country. I don't know. I've never had the pleasure of living in either one of those kind of scenarios. But what I'm saying is, it's just when I hear you, but it makes sense now because you've associated atheism with liberalism.
Yeah, and the two are linked. The other thing is, look, in Islam, from what you know, is alcohol banned or is it allowed?
Alcohol, from what I know, they say it's haram, which is forbidden.
Forbidden. Yet God says in the Quran, alcohol has benefits. But the benefits are outweighed by the harm.
Okay.
So liberalism, it can have some good stuff. Communism, socialism can have some good stuff. But the real question is, me and you can disagree about hypothetical societies. What we really need to ask is, which worldview is true? That's the question.
So apart from you mentioning to me that liberalism and atheism are intertwined,
yeah,
what is the other thing that within liberalism? Because you mentioned violence, but I don't want us to go down the road of violence because I could look at caliphates and I could then start saying, oh, well, they waged war. And I could say Fatimid Caliphate, Abbasid Caliphate, and I could mention war. So I don't think we should stick with the war thing because no one is really morally good because each party has been involved in war.
I agree with you partially, but I disagree with you partially. All human organized activities lead to violence. This is, whether you're a secularist, an atheist, a nationalist, all organized human activities lead to violence. All societies, all states have warfare. That's part and parcel. So the question really is, whose ethics of war, whose worldview is correct?
Subjective.
And it's not subjective if we know what's true. And the thing which I also wanted to say is this. If we look at a liberal society, some things become prevalent in a liberal society which destroy the foundations of society.
Give examples.
Okay, I'll give one example that I was recently speaking to someone about. It's fornication. Okay? Now fornication is something which is absolutely normal in the West, but just a few decades ago it was frowned upon. Now I'll give you a few examples and let me know what you think about this, right? So you have a society in which you don't really have a nuclear family. You have a mother, a father, a child. You don't really have that anymore. What you have is open relationships or fatherless families or single moms or single dads or whatever. And then when you have a child that's raised without parents, without the nuclear family, you get all sorts of societal problems. Additional to that, one of the things the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said is when a society, basically I'm paraphrasing, when you get fornication, God sends down diseases that their forefathers have never heard of. Now, if you look at society today, in London, I was just talking the other day to a doctor about the statistics in London about herpes, about HIV, STDs, and he works, obviously, he's seen the worst of the worst in London, right? And what you find is that not only do you have broken homes, not only do you have STDs, you have situations where basically there's no more trust anymore. So for example, someone's married to someone else, they come home late, where have you been? You know, people are always worried my partner's cheating on me. You could simply go onto your phone, download an app, right? Grindr, Tinder, whatever they're called, swipe, and that's what's going on right now. There is mass fornication happening, and this is leading to societal degeneration, STDs, broken homes, and ultimately, nihilism. Nihilism is the idea life is meaningless.
Whoa, that's a big stretch.
Okay.
You've taken liberalism to atheism and then to nihilism.
Oh, it's a jump, but I believe I can justify it.
It's got evidence.
Okay, so firstly, do you agree with me that nihilism is a problem?
Oh yes, yeah.
All right, so we agree.
In fact, I've accused certain people of being nihilists that I've spoken to here because of their worldview. So yeah.
Good, okay. Now, what does nihilism mean according to you? What do you think it means?
I've forgotten the definition, but basically their morals are very questionable because they answer to no one. It's very fluid.
There
They
you
can
go.
make up whatever they want.
There you go.
There was something else in the definition.
That's
I
a
can't
precise
remember.
definition. They can make up whatever they want. Right? So if I decide to spend my life looking for cures to diseases, and someone else decides to spend their life drawing a circle and drawing another circle on top of the circle and drawing another circle on top of the circle forever, that person and what I do in my life is equivalent. I'm no better than them and they're no better than me because life is meaningless. That's nihilism. Firstly, atheism leads to nihilism because life has no meaning, no purpose, no value, and everything is relative and subjective.
I mean, I'm not going to argue on behalf of the atheists because I'm not an atheist, but I know some would disagree with how you said atheism leads to nihilism. But my main discussion with you was to find out why you were very suspicious about liberalism. And but I can understand now from what you said, connecting with atheism and nihilism, and you've talked historically about countries that perpetuate liberalism, how they've been violent. But then I did mention Sweden. That is a good example, or is it a bad example?
Okay, so if we look at the history of Sweden, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but there can be instances where you can find almost all liberal states are involved in something. Maybe Sweden is or it isn't. The point I was making is, if a state like France does commit those violent acts, you can't use liberalism to discount them. Liberalism does not have a mechanism to get rid of that. The other thing is, I believe liberalism and atheism today are as well connected as wearing a mask and more healthier lifestyle or whatever. Basically, there's a direct correlation. There's a direct correlation between liberalism and atheism, because liberalism, what does it basically say? You yourself are the free agent. You do what you want, right? And if you look at even slogans today, Nike, just do it. Slogans like follow your heart. You've heard that slogan before.
I've heard Nike, just do it, yeah.
But the Islamic paradigm, the paradigm that we believe is from God, it says, do not follow your heart blindly. Do not follow your desires blindly. Do not follow your forefathers blindly. Use your mind, think, reflect. In fact, to wage war against your own lower desires. Not making, and God in the Quran says, have you seen the one who has made his desire God? He's made his desire God. I do what I want. Reality is what I make, right? And if you look at secularism and liberalism and atheism, what does it say? You make your own reality. Do what you want.
Secularism, liberalism, atheism, nihilism. You put them all in the same category.
Yeah. No, I believe one leads to another.
Okay, they're all...
So for example, you can be a secularist, but a secularist can be a fascist. A secularist can be someone else, okay? However, a subset of secularism is liberalism.
It will lead to liberalism.
And what is the foundation of liberalism? It is the idea that it's not revelation, it's what you come up with.
So what will you do against liberalism then? Can you do anything against its popularity?
What I will do against liberalism is simply explain to the people who believe in liberalism, give me evidence it's true.
It's true. When you say it's true as in the true way to live?
No. What I mean is, forget your practical ideas of X, Y, Z. The question is, why is that worldview, with its particular imperatives, where did it come from? How do we know it's true? For example, I'll tell you something, Preston. Someone asks me, why do you believe in the Quran? I will say, I believe in the Quran because the Quran's message about God is so natural and intuitive, it makes sense. There's one God, nothing like the creation, the only one worthy of worship. Okay, why do I believe in the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? He did these miracles, or he said these things, or his teachings are timeless, or X, Y, Z. Okay? Now, when it comes to liberalism, they simply assume it's true. They don't actually go out of their way to argue for it. Now, you spoke about Muhammad Hijab earlier. Muhammad Hijab had a debate with Dr. Lars Buhl from Norway or Sweden, wherever he's from. And they had a debate about liberalism, and he admitted liberalism has no proof. It has no evidence. It's something which isn't proven.
But I don't dispute that, but I don't think putting liberalism and Islam in the same category works, because Islam, as you mentioned the Prophet Muhammad, you mentioned God, Allah. Liberalism does not come from a deity. It does not have a prophet.
Their deity is themselves. They've made themselves the deity. Why? What is a deity? A deity is the ultimate value. It's the ultimate thing that you look up to. It's the ultimate goal. So in Islam, we believe all of our love, hope, fear, trust, it's all for the Creator. Now when you make your love, hope, trust, hope, fear all for something else, that becomes your God.
I watch it.
A God isn't necessarily...
I saw many of your videos, but...
Okay, I've made up a little physical idol, this is my God. Right? Your God is whatever you consider to be the greatest. And in Islam, we as Muslims, we say Allahu Akbar. Now when you hear the speaker's corner, if I go here and I go Allahu Akbar, what happens? People get scared, yeah? All it means is God is the greatest. That's all it means. God is the greatest. Now since God is the greatest, what does that mean? It means all authority, all power, all majesty is for God.
Which China is that?
And we should live our lives in a way that pleases Him. That's all it means. And that is the very kryptonite of liberalism. Because liberalism, the highest value is not God. The highest value is the self. So I believe, regardless of the benefits of liberalism, it's not true, and therefore I would never be a liberal.
And because it also leads to atheism. And then you mentioned
it comes from atheism and leads to atheism. Although, funnily enough, the liberals in the past, they weren't atheists. They
were religious.
Yes, but not religious. They believed in God. So, for example, they were deists. They were people who believed, some of them were Christian. From what I know, even the American forefathers, they were deists, right? And you know, they said about the American Constitution, we hold these rights to be self-evident, immutable, given to us by the Creator. And this is in the Declaration of Independence. This is in the human rights, right? This is the human rights conception, that it comes from God. It's immutable. But when things like you said, moral nihilism, when you said morals are subjective, what does it basically mean? It means these things are relative, subjective, and they have no basis. So I'll ask you a question. Currently we have this massive thing happening around the world about Black Lives Matter. Okay. Now, I've asked the question, and I challenge Darwinists, as you know I challenge these atheists. I've said, do black lives really matter to you guys? Is it actually the case that a black life is equal to a white life? And they're obviously going to try and say, yeah, it is.
Okay,
but is that true, according to Darwin? Darwin considered that in the future, you guys are going to get wiped out by the civilized races, which is his race, and we, the Asians or whatever we are, we're also savages, we're beneath the white people. He believed the highest of the whites were the English, and French and Portuguese were lower. Why were the English number one in hierarchy?
They were dominating the world at the time.
They were dominating the world, right? So what it is, even today, you know the people who discovered the double helix structure of the DNA, they won the Nobel Prize for it.
I've heard of it, but I don't know the history.
Watson and Crick. Watson and Crick, they're two scientists. Watson recently, he said, our policies in Africa, remember he's a Darwinist atheist, liberal. Our policies in Africa, meaning the Western world, they're bound to fail because we are assuming black people are equal to white people, and anybody that's had black employees knows that's not true. And this is Darwinism. So Darwinists, what do they believe? Do they really believe black people are equal to white people? No, they don't. And this is the thing, liberalism cannot step in and tell you, no, all human beings are equal because they're created by God, and what matters is your own piety. Liberalism doesn't say that. Liberalism, all it's based upon is the idea that we don't need revelation. Now, if we go to Darwinian science. What does Darwinian science say? It says the pinnacle, the highest, is the white, and then you have different types of white slabs or whatever. You go down, you get Asians, you get Indians, you get darker, then you get black people, and next to the black people you get what? You get chimpanzees. That's their hierarchy. So liberalism cannot deny that hierarchy, cannot deny that taxonomy. As a Muslim or a Christian or someone else, we can say all human beings are equal, and we don't believe in your Darwinian nonsense. Right? We don't believe in your delusions. But a liberal atheist will have to say, how else do we classify humans, right? Now, liberalism is also linked to capitalism, as you know, right? Liberal societies and capitalistic societies, they dovetail.
But capitalism exists in every other society. It's not just a liberal thing.
Yes and no. For example, capitalism doesn't exist in Cuba. Capitalism doesn't exist in China. Capitalism doesn't exist in all these countries.
Yeah, but the reason capitalism, they do buy and sell things in Cuba.
No, that's not capitalism.
That's part of capitalism.
No, that's too simplistic. That's too vague of a definition.
But then I could say to you, the reason why they don't profit from capitalism is because of the US trade embargo.
No, it's because, look, the countries which are not capitalistic, they decided not to be capitalistic.
But which country is not capitalistic? This is news to me.
Cuba, Venezuela, China, Russia. They are countries which are...
How is China not capitalistic? They've got Nike factories and iPhone factories.
That doesn't mean they're capitalistic. They have... They have... the people in charge of China are the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. They're communists.
Yeah, I know what they claim to be, but I'm saying economically...
Yeah, I think it's based upon your definition of capitalism. If your definition is buying and selling, then everyone's a capitalist.
Yes, from an economic point of view.
That's
exactly.
not the definition I'm using.
Okay.
I'm using the definition of the standard way of capitalism, which is that you don't have interference from the state in the market. You have free reign, and you let the market sort out itself, right? So even if you look at America, we had the 2008 crash, and then the American government came in and bailed out these big companies. That's not capitalism, that's socialism.
Yeah, that is socialism.
That's socialism,
yeah,
right?
Socialism.
So why did I bring up capitalism? Okay, from a capitalistic point of view, there's nothing wrong with the exploitation of